Good morning. This is retired Pastor Karl Schmidt from Calvary Lutheran Church, Little Lutheran Church in Amherst, New York. We welcome you to this October 8th of 2023. It happens to be the 18th Sunday of the Feast of Holy Trinity. And we welcome you to our broadcast this morning. The text appointed is from the Gospel of Matthew, the 22nd chapter, verses 34 to 46. That's Matthew 22, 34 to 46. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is a great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. While the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them, saying, What think ye of Christ? Whose son is he? They say unto him, The son of David. He saith unto them, How then doth David in spirit call him Lord, saying, The Lord said unto my Lord, Sit thou on my right hand, till I make thine enemies thy footstool. If David then call him Lord, how is he his son? And no man was able to answer him a word, neither durst any man from that day forth ask him any more questions. Here ends a portion of the gospel text. We want to look at that last little bit from verse 46 of Matthew 22, the end of that sentence. Neither did any man from that day forth ask him any more questions, at least from that group. That is probably the saddest and dumbest thing I've ever heard. You have a guy in your midst who raises the dead, heals the sick with a touch or a word, sometimes not even being in the same, town. Walks on water, turns water into wine, snaps his fingers and basically goes from one place to the next instantly, manipulates time as easily as opening a door. And oh, by the way, he doesn't need doors. He can go through walls. So, yeah. Okay, so even if you're not a religious person, even if you're just stone cold drunk, and you saw any of that, and you were still stone cold drunk, even someone who is habitually drunk would go, huh? That's different. I think I should talk to that person. That's just too weird. Why aren't I talking to them? I mean, it is it's what the kids say, no-brainer. It takes no intelligence whatsoever at all. It takes no faith, no religion, nada, to just go, I probably should talk to this guy. Curious, wondering. But no, these folks who claim to be religious go to Jesus, and their big burning question is not about the grace of God, because, hey, who doesn't want to stand before an angry God on our own merits? I mean, that sounds like fun, doesn't it? Where God points his finger at you and says, What hast thou wrought? And you go, oh, crud. And you melt into the cement. That doesn't sound like the brightest idea, going before God and trying to argue with him about points of law. In fact, that sounds like a really, really ignorant place to start. I mean, if you're going to stand before God and you're already claiming to be religious, and the centerpiece of your religion is about mercy, because if you asked Isaiah or Jeremiah, it is the tender mercies of the Almighty that they turn to. And that is the heart and soul of Judaism, mercy, God's forgiveness. It is not about the law. All you have to do is ask Moses about that, how that worked out for him. He violated the law so badly that God was so angry with him. He just said, thanks, but no thanks. You led the people of Israel, but you did a really garbage job. So I'm not even going to, you can't even, tell you what, I'll show you the Holy Land, but you're not going to go there. because I'm fed up with you and basically every adult in Israel. And so he made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years. So not even Moses could deal very well with the law. And you can ask pretty much anyone in the Old Testament how that went, even King David, not well. No. His family life was a mess. His marriages were a mess. And he really did a garbage job leading the country. He wasn't a very good king. He was self-centered, petty, narcissistic. He did a garbage job, really. And yet he was one of the longest-serving kings in Israel's history. And if you look back in the history of the whole thing, they didn't really actually have any good kings. I mean, as far as a simple administrator went. No, not really. So when you look at this whole thing, the law, not your friend. I mean, you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be a student of the Torah to know that much. The law is not your friend. I mean, police are not there to congratulate you on going 29 in a 30 zone. They've never pulled anyone over going, hey, well done you. Here's a box of candy. You went the entire road and didn't go 1 mile an hour over at any point. No, police are there to pull you over if you if they whatever. But no, the law and those who enforce the law only deal with lawbreakers. And in that sense, we're all lawbreakers. According to who? Well, not me, because I'm a lawbreaker. So according to who? Well, that would be the guy who is the actual judge. My wife always yelled at me about being judgmental. Okay, I agree. She's right. On the other hand, there is a boss who is going to judge everyone. And what are you going to do? Look at him and go, hey, get over it. And that's insane, because that's when he flicks you into hell. Flick the finger, boom, gone, hell. So there we are. Yeah. And under his estimation, there is none that is righteous, no, not a single one. They have all gone astray like sheep following their own direction. And in the Old Testament, the Lord himself compares Israel to a camel who's pawing the sand, sniffing the air, looking for a mate. And I don't know anything about camels and never lived in a desert, but, from a boy raised in Detroit, that doesn't sound like the compliment. If I went to my daughter and said, hey, you're just like a spitting camel out there in the desert, pawing at the sand, nose in the air, sniffing for a mate. She would probably go, Dad, that's not a compliment. Yeah. And so when God says that to his people, not a compliment. So there are no compliments based on their behavior. Not because they didn't try hard. No, they occasionally tried hard. It just was unacceptable. That's basically the answer. So if you're going to talk to God, and rather than sit there and argue with him about points of law, why don't you do the sane thing? Yeah, sane, as in, don't play with fire, don't put your head in the oven. Sane. That would be ask him about mercy. Ask him about salvation. And that's exactly what Jesus did in this conversation with the Pharisees and the doctors of the law, Sadducees. And he said, ask them a question, what do you think of Christ? Whose son? And he'd ask them about the Mashiach. Because the word Christ, it comes from the Greek Christos. Christos is from the Hebrew Mashiach. And Christ means anointed. Mashiach means anointed. The appointed or anointed one to a particular task, usually of a royal nature. That's the essence of this word. So Christ, yes, it has a Greek background, but the idea and the source of it is from the Old Testament Hebrew, the Messiah, the Mashiach. And so he asked them about Mashiach, whose son? And they said the son of David. And so they had that conversation, but they gave up. He pointed them away from the law to the mercy of God. And what did they do? Did they follow up on this conversation? No. Instead, and verse 46, and no one was able to answer him a word because they didn't want to. And neither did any man from that day forth ask him any more questions, obviously from these groups, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. I mean, boy, dumb, really dumb, because, if you had a chance to sit down at a table and have coffee with God and say, hey, I was kind of curious, about that whole, I don't know, start with creation, then move to the flood. How'd you actually do that? I mean, how long did it really take? I mean, what did you actually do? Can you tell me more about it? I'm really curious because, the way the Old Testament records it is just kind of a periphery thought. It doesn't really give me an answer. So can you tell me about it? I mean, you're the one who did it. So, tell me about it. Just curious. That would be a start. That would be intelligent. And then it'd be like, and by the way, why do you bother with us? Why would you want anything to do with us? I can't even imagine. And that would be also a better place to start. Because why would he? But he does. And that's the mystery of what religion is. It's called his mercy, his kindness. That he accepts the unacceptable. That he loves. That he loves the unlovable. That he desires that which no one would want. And he calls sons and daughters those who should be abandoned. And that's the mystery of this. All because he wanted to. That's the thing. He just wanted to. So he sent his son Jesus to die on the cross. How does that make things better? I don't know. I've done this for 38 years. I'm retired for 3 years. I'm emeritus, serving free, basically, at a little church, and I still have no clue. How does that fix anything? I don't know. You tell me. But he says it works, so I'm going with that. Because he's kind of the boss. And kind of like the deal where the boss says, jump, and that's it. And so he says, yeah, I'm happy. We have a happy God who's happy with you. And that's it. That's religion. So, well, I hope you enjoyed that. That's retired Pastor Karl Schmidt from Calvary Lutheran Church, Little Lutheran Church in Amherst, New York. I guess the Buffalo Bills are going to be playing today. It's kind of weird they're playing in the morning on a Sunday, but I guess my wife don't really watch football, but my wife tells me I guess they're in England somewhere. I guess, on the other side of the ocean. So anyways, I guess the time ended up, but I don't know. Personally, it's not my favorite idea for time. Anyways, here we are. So, take care. Bye-bye.